Welcome to the Blackburn End Podcast. What an end to the month it has been. Rovers winning their last 3 games with away wins, midweek wins, clean sheets, which begs the question, has this been the most unexpected week we've had as a Rovers fan in recent memory? Let's find out, but first, here's the headlines. So Rovers returned to domestic football with a fruitful trip to the Riverside, beating Boro 1-0 in a solid display that triggered a lot of Boro fans. Rovers then returned to Ewood and had another shock result, beating Leeds 1-0 in a solid display that triggered a lot of Leeds fans. And social media is a very pleasant place to be for Rovers fans as they purr over the performances of our ragtag squad, proving that it's all about the sum of all parts. And obviously, as we're recording, there has just been the FA Cup draw, and in the third round, it sees us return to the Riverside for a matchup with Boro in the new year, which should be a nice, tasty one for us. But, well, we struggled for content last week. This week could be 3-4 hours long, knowing me and Mark. So, Mark, can you remember a week with 2 unexpected victories like this?
Not off the top of my head. I've just to point out, by the way, this was left here this morning. I don't know what's going on. There's obviously an elf in it, and there's a bus. I don't know if Joe Rodon's placed it there or if the elf has. I'm not sure.
I don't think I've seen a guy more triggered after playing us as that did the rounds with Joe Rodon's interview.
Someone needs to check he's all right.
Yeah, and the Rovers media team, spot on with it. Great response, wasn't it?
Oh, I mean, part of the bus. Yeah. All right, Joe. Nice one. Carry on.
Well, we've just discussed before recording the pod, as a little peek behind the curtain, that it's really difficult for us to kind of go back and talk about the games as individual entities. We're going to try a little bit, but we're going to probably dot from the Boro game to the Leeds game. But first, we'll start with the Boro game. We've got our match reaction pod audio. Now, going into this, let's a bit of a background, obviously. Rovers had had the game against Portsmouth called off, so it was our first game coming back from the international break, and we'd had the Cardiff win, which was great going into that. But last week on the pod, we weren't necessarily positive about Rovers' chances here. So let's see the match reaction audio.
Shit the bed, Beaty. We have won a midweek game. I am so proud of those lads. They absolutely carried out Eustace's plan to a T. All of them working the absolute knackers off. That's why we love them. Even if it had been 0-0, you'd have gone, do you know what? We're missing a bit of pace. We're missing someone to put the ball in the net, but you'd have still been proud of the performance because they give their absolute everything. And they defend with such a pride now. It's so great to see. Bring on Leeds. Bring on the rest of them. Bring on the Premier League.
Oh, I'll tell you what, Marky boy, I'll take that one. What a performance in the end. I know it wasn't pretty to look at, but we just did what needed to be done. We soaked up the pressure. We got forward when we had to. And I was really pleased with everything. I thought the lads came out. They looked fresh. They looked sharp at times. Okay. We missed a couple of chances that we should have scored, and it was a bit disappointing. But to come into it and not have had a game and to perform like that, midweek win, like you've said, you know, it's been 11 months, and we said on the pods we wanted an unexpected win, and by God, this was it. I didn't expect us to go up there and get the win, but to keep a clean sheet, solid performance at the back, for Super Dom Hyam to get a goal up top, just really chuffed. Just looked it up, and apparently Chris Ray is a Middlesbrough fan. Well, I'll tell you what, if he's driving home for Christmas, he's not driving home with 3 points, but we certainly are. I'll take that one, son.
Yeah, I'd had a beer.
Well, I don't know what's going on with I sound like I'm half cut, and I genuinely haven't even had a beer. I'm like, what is going on? I don't know if I'm recording them on like half speed or something.
The thing is sometimes I come away from the games, especially when it's a game like that. It's an evening game. I'd watched it on the telly, obviously, and you know, kids are in bed, and I'm thinking to myself, right, I just need to calm myself down, and then I sound like quite dull. You know, I know I've not exactly got the most exuberant of voices, but geez, I listened back and I thought, hang on, you should be excited on this one. But yeah, so after that game, that's how we felt. Mark, now you've had a chance to look back. You know what's happened. We felt quite excited after this one, and I think we spoke in this kind of terms because we kind of expected not to get anything from Leeds. And it was like, oh, well, this is great. The job's done for the week. You know, we've got 3 points. Let's move on. Was you just delighted with the fact that we got a result, or was it the performance as well?
Both for me. I think what I'm really pleased with is, it's unexpected. Mainly to people outside of Blackburn, you know, it's something that we knew we have in our locker, and we said it wouldn't have surprised us if we went to do it. I think we obviously talked last week saying, do you know what, in the context of a season, if you lose at Boro and you lose at home to Leeds, they're not results that you look at and they stand out and jump off the page at you. However, we could see a way that we could go and win, and this was the way. So for me, it's not a smash and grab necessarily. It's not that it's not a performance that we couldn't replicate again. And forget the Leeds game. This is a blueprint now that we've got, that we are hard to beat. We're hard to break down. What I think we both worry about a little bit at the moment is, do we have that cutting edge up front, and do we have that pace on the counter? They're the two glaring areas for me that I think we need to strengthen. That's fine. That's where we are. So to be able to go and do it, we did it last year at Leeds in a similar manner, probably more backs against the wall. Smodics popped up. We don't have Smodics, do we, this year? That's what we were saying. You know, it's very difficult to go and do that when we don't have that one player that we can hang our hat on. Do we think we can go and keep clean sheets in places? Absolutely. It's the other end that we just worry about. So, of course, Dom Hyam was the obvious answer to that.
Yeah, and he just popped up. I mean, it was great play. He obviously wasn't offside at all. He was 100% onside, and we're not even going to question that. But taking that aside, it was a great play for the goal. But we'd missed chances. Dolan missed a header. I know he's not exactly the tallest player in the world, but he probably should be scoring that one. But we had our chances, and it wasn't like we just came and made up the numbers and, like you say, soaked up the pressure. We came and we did our bit. And there were times where I thought that actually we was unlucky not to be 1 or 2 up. And yes, okay, Middlesbrough had their opportunities, and we let them have the ball, very similar to the Leeds game. But Eustace came in with that plan and did exactly what needed to be done. It's interesting that we're talking about strikers once again, and we're going to talk about it in the Leeds game as well. But the way that we play, it does mean that the strikers aren't going to get a load of chances, because we do play it around a little bit. And the way I see it is that front four are all kind of a striker together. They kind of play the role together. So the striker might drop and the number 10 might go a bit further up. The wingers come in central. So I'm still not judging the fact that we have Ohashi, Gaye, and we'll get to the striker situation later, but they're not scoring, because we are making chances, and those chances will turn into goals. But like you say, for Hyam to pop up and get his goal there, for me, I felt like it was just a deserved goal. I felt like there was going to be something that dropped for us. And when I say deserved, not necessarily in this game, but just as a whole for the season, the fact that they put in so much effort and we get all these chances and we can't necessarily finish them off. It was just nice for one to go our way. And I said in my match reaction about having an unexpected result. So far this season, up to that game, this was a very unexpected result. I expected Middlesbrough to offer way more. They didn't. They didn't look sharp. They didn't look like they were, going to offer much in the game against us. Yes, I think they had 10 shots to our 7. They had 60% possession, but it just didn't feel. It just didn't feel like we were under major amounts of pressure that I thought we would be. You'd already talked about Lath up front, but they were a strong side, and I feel like we made them look pretty ordinary at times.
And that's it. And I'll talk about this more in the Leeds game, but this is not a team that's just defending. This is a team plan. We are setting up with this in mind. And there are 2 ways to play football. There's more than 2 ways to play a football match, but there's 2 ways in the sense of you can either, again, I'll use a boxing analogy. You can be a front foot fighter and throwing loads of shots and not connecting. or you can be on the back foot. And there is an art to defending, and there is an art to playing on the back foot. And that's what we've done in both games. It's hard to separate them in that sense. We have set up with a plan, and you're absolutely right, Mike. Yeah, or Hashit, Gate, whatever you want to say about them. We are playing, whether it's because of who we've got up front or haven't got, or whether it's not, we are playing with an attacking unit. Now, we have a plan the way we're defending, we have a plan to attack. And the way Ohashi played that role, maybe that is because he's got certain deficiencies, maybe not. But the way he played that role, I thought, was perfect on Wednesday night. I thought he held the ball up when he needed to. He came deep when he needed to. He linked the play. He ran. He pressed. I was really impressed with Yuko Ashi. I thought he did a really good team job. Do I want him to score more goals? Yeah, of course I do. But I just think this is a team that's playing to a plan, and they're executing that plan as well as they possibly could. Do you need a bit of luck when you're playing a team like Middlesbrough away? Yeah, of course you do. However, equally, for me, they could have been down to 10 men in the first 10 minutes. Yep. So, would that have made a difference? Undoubtedly, it would have to have done. The other thing that I'm not sure how much difference it's made, like elephant in the room, we didn't play on Saturday. Now, we know that everyone was having a pop at the club. We know that the River was above a certain level, but we also know it was a plan. We want it to be fresh for Middlesbrough. We want it to be fresh for Leeds. Everyone's fallen for it. We'll have Portsmouth down in the middle of January. Easy work on a Wednesday night. Job done. Up here for thinking.
And I love the fact that Portsmouth had their issues against Millwall and that they had to have the match abandoned. That was absolutely amazing. To be fair, their fans took it quite well and actually had tails between their legs because there was quite a bit of banter and messages going around, and they were just like holding their hands up. They even said like we were blaming Rovers for a River, but we can't even pay our electricity bills and stuff. It was quite ironic that they go and have that situation. But yeah, I think we did look fresher. Everything looked good. I mean, it's interesting hearing Tyrese Dolan's interviews today about Eustace and how he's got people feeling like above themselves, and it's really good that we've got that, and we'll get to that in question of the week. It's going to be a really difficult pod today, mate. We are going to be jumping around. I mean, the mailbag's got questions. We're talking about Eustace, question of the week, and everything. People listening, we are trying our best to keep to a structure, but we might be jumping around a little bit. It's going to be like a Chris Nolan movie. It really is. So just trying to isolate the Boro game just for a couple of minutes longer. Obviously, Travis, once again, absolutely on fire, getting himself around, doing what needs to be done. Now, when it comes to Travis, I feel like this is kind of what we were missing last year, with that kind of fire in midfield. But I don't think last year he would have given it to us. And we spoke about the last couple of pods about why is he playing so well this year compared to last. I think there's a few things. One is Eustace. Again, we'll get to. And the second thing is, I think when he's gone to Ipswich away, gone away to Ipswich, get my words out, and he's played with different people, he's probably learnt a little bit different. He's kind of understood the fact that might be not as good as he thought he was, like for that, because he wasn't playing. And maybe like it was a bit of a humbler for him. But then on the flip side, he humbled with the fact that JDT didn't want him, but confidence boosting that the club wanted him. The club didn't want to let him go. JDT wanted him. Mentioned it over the last couple of weeks. And I think he's just got this injection in himself now where he's like, you know what, I'm going to fight for this club and I'm going to give everything I've got. And this was another performance in this game and the Leeds game, which we'll get onto in a second, where Travis just absolutely gave everything he had. I mean, we talked about it being a sum of all parts, and I'm going to bring you in now. Who did you feel like really stood head and shoulders above the rest of the team?
I wouldn't say any of them. I thought it was a sum of all parts. I thought, looking at the team before the game, I thought, should Owen Beck be playing? Pickering maybe deserves to keep his place. Travis and Tronstad are the obvious ones. I think their endeavour's unbelievable. You're absolutely spot on about Travis. I think we'll never really know, but the performances he's putting in now, I think, are a consequence of everything that happened as much of anything. Whether that's just that he's a better player now, whether it's a different level of desire to prove people wrong, whether he's gone away and thought, hold on a minute, the wrong manager doesn't want me at Rovers. If Eustace goes, it could happen again. I couldn't get in the Ipswich team. I could end up in League One without, which is where we were looking at the beginning of the season. Is he going to be a starter for us? Although all of a sudden his career's heading a different way. I'll be honest, right now, we're going to have a job on our hands to keep hold of him beyond the summer. The way he's playing right now. I haven't seen this season alone many better centre midfielders than Lewis Travis for the role he's doing. So,
but ultimately, that's the kind of team we are, aren't we? And if he was to wave off and say thank you for everything, I'm off to pastures new. As long as we're getting a pretty penny for him, it's something where we're win-win.
But we were talking, weren't we, about do we cut our losses? There was talking of was it Luton bid 900 grand for him? All these kind of figures were going about. I think the other one who's really starting to come into his own, though, is Todd Cantwell. His ability just gives us that X factor. It just gives us that we've not got the pace, we've not got the number 9 goal threat, but he's just got that little bit of something, hasn't he? And you just feel like something could happen.
I was gutted that goal disallowed because it would have been a lovely first goal for him.
Well, exactly. It would. And I was just going to say, he's a little bit less of a goal threat than I thought and than he probably should be. That is the only downside at the minute I can see to Todd Cantwell. I think he equally has got a real bit about his teeth. He's desperate to prove people wrong. And let's be honest right now, if Todd Cantwell is not with us in the next 18 months, that's because it's worked out for everybody. And actually, I think the plan is probably that he shouldn't be with us in the next 12 to 24 months, 18 months, because he should be coming here. He should be coming and looking a cut above and going back and going to the Premier League or going wherever. If he's not, then he's not doing the job, is he? Because there's no way Todd Cantwell's going to be a 7 out of 10 for us over a season. Yeah, he might have some highs, some lows, but generally speaking, he's either going to be on the bench because he's not cutting the mustard often enough, he's not consistent enough, or he's going to be exactly like he is at the moment, and he's that difference maker.
Yeah, it's like a Sigurdsson for me. Like, it was going to go. You give these players a chance to come in and just rebuild themselves or give themselves a different stage to show themselves on. And I mean, I don't want to get into Sigurdsson because this is it's a completely off topic to what we're talking about. But like Sigurdsson, if you've come in if Blackburn Rovers have signed you and you've played Champions League, your career's not quite gone where it needed to go. So we knew that was going to be a risk. But Cantwell, there was an element of a risk there because he was going to be on decent wages. I know the transfer fee wasn't a lot, but he's come in and he's done exactly what needs to be done. And like you say, he looks a cut above. I mean, he put the ball across for Heim, didn't he? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, 1-2 with Beck.
Yeah.
Great touch by Beck as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, the Boro fans were going on about it being offside, but Ohashi did give it a little touch to make it not quite as offside, in my opinion. But Cantwell did get the assist. But yeah, moving on from that one. But looking at some of the fan reactions, Amy's put, "What a win, my boys." Aaron Holt, long-time listener, 2 wins on the road back-to-back. What have you done with Blackburn Rovers? It's absolutely true. This is uncharted territory for us. Look, Heim was probably offside, but they should have had a player sent off. It's the Championship at its finest, getting their Rovers. That was Carl Wilkes, and that's absolutely spot on. It's peaks and troughs. This is what happens when it comes to EFL football. But yeah, all really, really positive. You put out the 3 words reactions. Have you got any favourites?
I'll tell you what, I have done some fishing this week. Ian Farrimond came, very professional performance. We have very similar things to yours, Mike. What a win. Bring on Leeds from Skids. Love that. But then we did have quite a few Boro fans whinging about offside goal. I mean, I've got 2 issues with this. Adam Wright, if you're listening, you've popped up in our comments to say, more than welcome, opposition fans come in our comments. But it's a 3-word review, and you've put offside goal. So,
Now they're simple folk, aren't they?
At least add another word in there. Come on.
Well, I just felt like everyone came away from that happy with the result, obviously, but happy with the performance, happy the fact that we had that plan to be able to soak it up. And this is where I think Eustace is excelling at the moment. Is he's willing to have games where we control it and willing to have games where we let them have the ball. And obviously we then move into the Leeds game, the earlier kick-off, the weird time of 1:30 on the Saturday. Now, we came away from that Boro game just on top of the world. And I think there's still an element of, do you know what, I'm happy with the 3 points out of the 2. If Leeds come in and we make a good account of ourselves, we'll just be happy. And I really felt like it was a game where Leeds were going to come and absolutely go for us, and we was just going to have to sit back, cross fingers and hope for the best. But before we get into it, let's listen to the match audio after this one.
So there I am on the podcast, mate. I'm saying that I'll just take a point, maybe 2 out of these 2 games. And what do they go and do? 6 points. And what a 6 points. Performance is exactly what was needed. Eustace masterclass. Tyrese Dolan and Sonny there. Oh, just 2 players that just gave absolutely everything they could. And they weren't the only ones. Everyone did. Well, we have to have a conversation about Matt Targay, but everyone else just gave absolutely everything they had to get that result. Did we ride our luck at times? Probably, but no, I'll take that one, son. Take that one, have a beer, enjoy the time that it is to be a Rovers fan, and we'll break this down on the pod.
Leeds are falling apart again. And we are going to the Premier League, without doubt. Job done. Easy work.
Well, Mark, I think your positivity is ringing round Ewood Park at the moment. Break it down for me, mate. Talk to me about this Leeds game. I mean, there wasn't many changes. Beck comes in on that left wing, which turned out to be a bit of a masterstroke. Yeah. Talk to me about it.
I thought it was the right decision to start Owen Beck there. I thought he came on 66th minute, was it, Boro, before we scored, and I thought he made a difference. It also allows us to double up when we need to and almost go into a back 5 quite fluidly. Worked really well against Boro in the end, particularly when we'd scored. I was happy with that. I know on the pod last week we were saying, I'm not sure if we'll get anything out of this. For some reason, I woke up Saturday morning. I'll not break into the Feeling Fine song. And I did genuinely think, I think we're going to get something from this game. I felt really positive. I couldn't tell you exactly what it was. Maybe it was the Boro game. I felt really positive about it. Went to the ground, half expecting us to get something out of the game. If not, I thought we could win the game. All the talk amongst everyone was, I think we can win this. I watched the Leeds play. I got there quite early and the concourse was closed. Another story. So I was still with my little girl watching them warm up. The intensity the players were warming up. Travis was going round them all. When I take my little girl sitting in the Jack Walker lower, so you're really close to where they're warming up. He's going round them all. He's high-fiving. He's giving them up, screaming at them almost. And I was like, I think we might win this. I was watching the Leeds players. You're right next to the tunnel as well where we sit. Watching the Leeds players going down. And I thought, they're not up for this. As you could just tell body language. And I thought we deserved the win. I've spoken to 2 or 3 Leeds mates. They've said the same thing. I know Joe Rodon's got a different opinion. Whatever. I genuinely thought we deserved the win. There's 2 ways to play it. And there's a guy on TikTok and he put a video out and he actually commented because somebody put something to him. And he's a Leeds fan. And the Leeds fan had said to him something around, they park the bus and we've got to learn to break teams like that down. What he was saying was exactly the way I saw the game. And I had to comment and say, do you know what, mate? Finally, someone sees sense. So there are 2 ways to play football. You don't have to have possession of the ball to have control of the game. We knew that Leeds moved the ball quite slowly. They can put it across their back foot, have that all day. If that's the possession you've got, it means nothing. Absolutely nothing. They weren't moving us around. They weren't dragging us about at all. And I thought we looked the more dangerous of the two teams. We certainly didn't depart the bus. Don't get me wrong. They had their spells. And when we scored, we did revert to like 5 at times when we were defending. That's just sensible. We absolutely shut the game down. There was once where Pears gave the ball and gave them an opportunity, and there was 1 or 2 other half moments in quick succession where I thought, oh, hold on a minute, where Pears made a half-decent save. It went out for a corner. I thought, do you know what? And then they had the same again in the second half, disallowed goal, and a couple of bits. Other than those 2 flurries, I didn't feel threatened at all. I thought we controlled the game. I thought they walked into our traps perfectly. I thought Hashi was great. I thought Tyrese Dolan played like a man who was desperate for a contract and was live on Sky. Or it was certainly live in front of a team that he was desperate to impress. I thought the back 4 were immense again. Dom Hyam, I've said it now for 12 to 18 months, on the right-hand side of defence is a far better player than he is on the left. I think Travis and Tronstad are as good a pair as we could get. And once again, Todd Cantwell is an absolute difference maker. He had more quality than anyone else on the pitch.
100%. And you brought up an interesting point about where we allowed them to have the ball. I've actually just found something which it's more for the YouTube listeners than the podcast, but we'll try and discuss. But I actually got the heat map of where we had the ball compared to Leeds, and Pears had the ball more than, in his area more than anywhere else on the pitch for us. And they had it at the back. But if you look at their heat map, they had it all over. There was nowhere where they really had it in a lot of possession in one go. And they were just playing it around the back. And we just really pushed forward and just sat and just let them do it exactly how you said. And then when we had the ball, we gave it to Pears and we just made sure that, we just kept control of it. And one of those things where we used to panic when we had it at the back, but Leeds did play into it. They did press, and we did look into that second level. And Pears would just go long. We would reset ourselves, and we'd just soak it up. Going back to Rodon and his comments. I mean, everyone's due their opinion, and I'll never argue anyone's except for his, where it was completely wrong about us parking the bus. We didn't park the bus. We just thought, we're going to sit in positions. We weren't massively deep. We just sat in our positions. We just let them have it in non-dangerous areas. And if you want to pass it around and waste your possession doing that, absolutely fine. But we will get opportunities. And by God, did we get opportunities. We hit the bar quite early on. Was that about the 15th minute, I think? Or was it earlier than that?
It felt around 15.
It felt early, didn't it?
Yeah.
So we hit the bar, and that was the moment where I was like, you know what, we've got an opportunity here, because I think there was an arrogance factor from them. I think they expected to come and it to be easy because we're Blackburn
100%.
Rovers and they're Leeds United.
100%. And you look at the stats; they had 13 shots, we had 11. I thought we had the better chances, if anything. Penalty aside, even we forced them to have. So they had 36 crosses. Now, if you look at Leeds' team and you look at ours, do we want them playing intricate balls in between the lines, or do we want them crossing the ball? We want them crossing the ball. We forced them. That was their only option, and they put 36 crosses in. Not a problem for us. That carry on all day. Successful aerial duels, massively in our favour. Our pass completion was quite poor, but that is because we were going, like you've said, drawing them on, and we were going into Hashi quite early. We were going into Dolan quite early, trying to get it into Cantwell and Beck. So slightly riskier balls than usual, but I just didn't feel, like I said, there that spell where Pears had done that and then redeemed himself instantly, and a decent save out for a corner in the first half. Second half, they had that tiny spell where I thought, the pressure's going to come on here. The crowd are going to get behind them. Offside goal, well offside. I know we joked about the Boro one, but it was, and the flag was up before it was anywhere near the net. And they just...
That was good officiating as well, to be fair. That was good officiating.
There was nothing that I felt,
no,
do you know what, this is how they're going to break us down. I honestly thought, although they had the ball, we had got that game under our control. And that was not by parking the bus. What we did superbly was not allow them to have any space between the lines. So against Boro, if you watched, Hashi was tasked with going on to, and I'm not going to be able to remember his name, captain, really good footballer, Johnny Howson. So Hashi drops in onto Johnny Howson and he had to stop that ball going to his feet. And Cantwell then pushed up further up. So he was playing ahead of Hashi most of the time. Against Leeds, dead simple if you watch it back. Sorry. Rovers said basically, right, their wingers were not bothered about them getting the ball if they are deep, but our wingers must follow them. Again, fine, because we know Junior Firpoth goes forward. But we had our midfielders in Travis and Cantwell, their job, but normally one sort of sits more central and Travis goes and Harry's. Actually, they sat quite deep together just to shuffle across, and they weren't actually doing, I would say they ran less on Saturday than they do normally, certainly Travis, because what he was doing was holding his position, and it was just easy, just shuttling across, we'll bot the space, and then they were going back across, all the way to the other side, back and across the other way. I genuinely think Rovers will have come away from that, and when they're analysing it, will go, that was a lot easier than I thought it would be. They should have pulled.
Yeah, it's like they played into our hands a little bit, wasn't it? And I think a lot of it did come from that arrogance, like we've discussed.
I agree.
And the one thing I would say, the one word I would actually use with our performance was just disciplined. When in possession and out of possession, how we did things, you could just see exactly what they've been asked to do, and they all did it. And we've asked for time and again that we need rotation. People are going to be tired. They did not look tired. And now I know that we had that extended international break, but they did not look tired against Boro.
No.
And they did not look tired against Leeds. And like they say, the ball, if you let the ball do the work, you don't need to, run yourself ragged. Now, coming to the end of the game, it was looking a little bit like Leeds were going to throw more and more at us. But again, I didn't feel like they were getting the opportunities that made me that concerned. And that came down to the fact that everyone was willing to put in a shift and do what needed to be done. Dolan being one of them, Tronstad being another. But looking at that first half as an individual, I felt like Tronstad was probably the unsung hero of the half. But Dolan's runs, and he was actually, his trickery does annoy me. And there was a few times where he was probably overplaying it. But that got him the opportunity to get the penalty. And it looked like they just didn't have an answer for him at that point. Now, it was a penalty. I thought a few Leeds fans thought it wasn't. It was obviously a penalty. But did you see what happened with the penalty taking situation?
So from where I was, it looked like Travis had gone and got the ball. And I thought, he's just doing what seems commonplace at the moment, where one player stands on the penalty spot in case anyone psychs him out, and the other player sorts their head out. But yeah, could you see a bit more on telly?
Yeah, to be honest, it looked like Dolan wanted it, and Travis was saying no. It's Cantwell's. Cantwell had come in to say, well, it is my penalty. So I'm guessing he's been assigned the penalty taker. But Dolan was getting himself, seemed to be quite agitated that he wanted to take it. And it seemed like an argument was kind of happening. But Travis was being, the big popper of the situation, the big brother, and saying, no, back off. And I was just so glad when Cantwell scored, because that could have caused a bit of a situation. But yeah, it looked like Dolan was desperate to take that penalty, and I'm not sure why. I like the eagerness, and he obviously felt good on the day, and he goes and gets club man of the match, which was great. But it did seem like it was a little bit of a maybe petulant moment from somebody. I'm guessing it was Dolan. I don't want to be too sure, but great penalty. I was getting worried that the ref was, he took the whistle. Cantwell didn't seem to hear him, turned, and I thought, oh no, this is just taking too long. But what a penalty.
Great penalty. I think your analysis, Dolan's spot on there. I think he looked a threat. He looked quicker than he has done for a while. Whether that's confidence, we know what confidence does to people. he looked desperate to take people on, but in the right way. Firpo couldn't handle him, but 1,000,000% agree about Tronstad. There was a point where Leeds were half counter-attacking, and Tronstad was running back towards the Blackburn end, but near to the Jack Walker side. And Leeds were attacking, and the fans were screaming at him to come across and try and win the ball. If he'd have done that and not made it, and we know Tronstad's not the quickest, then they'd have been in on goal. And instead, it was just unbelievable from him. It was like he knew what they were going to do before they did. And he just kept his position, slotted in almost where Hyam would be normally. In across came Firpo, and he just stepped in calmly, took the ball off him, played it upfield. It just looks easy to him. I think we've got players that are playing to a plan. I think the word disciplined I like. The concentration that they're showing is something that cannot be underestimated. That must be tiring. But you're right, Leeds were arrogant. Leeds thought, we'll just keep doing it and we'll break them down. They can't keep doing this. And we were just better organised and better able to concentrate and stick to a plan. And then it felt relatively comfortable. It really did. I didn't feel that stretched and that worried.
And it's so weird because they looked slower. They were playing like it was an inevitable thing. Like, what are you even on this pitch with us for? You know, we can just swat you aside at any point. And then they began to realise they didn't. But that urgency never seemed to come. You know, like you said, there was that spell. They got the goal that was ruled out, and correctly so. And I thought it was a great spot by the lino because Bamford had kind of leaned himself back and around. So great vision by the lino on that one. Glad he wasn't at the Middlesbrough game. And it was definitely very disciplined about Pears was making saves. The defenders were doing well, but we were still getting opportunities at the other end. I mean, Cantwell missed one that he should have scored. I think he was embarrassed himself. I mean, we spoke about that video watching him that went round on social media, and I was a little bit worried. And then I saw this, I was like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. But I just thought that the energy was there. We was getting these opportunities. And then when Rodon comes out with that interview after, you just like, we was obviously watching a different game, you know, because in possession, we were getting opportunities. And I thought we were sensible with the ball. I don't remember us being particularly risky or anything like that. It was all just exactly what needed to be done. And it was a great performance. I mean, look at some of the fan reactions. I love it when we win a game and we get an unexpected win. And like we said, we'd looked at these two and we just wanted one unexpected win. We go and get two, and the fans are just absolutely, you know, flying on it. Steve Beaumont, this is just outstanding. Chris Lambert, Uncle Jack's Barmy Army. Well done, Rovers. You made us look average. You'll be up there come the end of the season. That's from a Leeds fan, obviously, and I hope so. Wow. 6 points when everyone expected none. These lads. Well, I was definitely one of those. How did you feel coming away from this game? Do you feel like this has just been a week as a flash in the pan, or is it something to build on?
Nope. Same as the Boro game. Do I think we can keep these performances up and win every game? No, I don't think we will do that. I do think we've got to remember that it's only one goal we've scored in each game, but we're keeping clean sheets, and that gives you a hell of a chance. I just feel we're playing to a plan. These aren't fluke results. These aren't games where they've had 30 shots on goal and Pears has had a game that he's never going to have again. And these are games where actually our plan and the way we've executed our plan has outsmarted and outperformed the opposition. Simple for me. And I'll be honest, I am getting a little bit giddy. I have had a smile on my face. I'm not saying we're going to get promoted in the automatics. I'm not saying we're going to get promoted. But right now, there's a little bit of something to be excited about to be a Rovers fan, because we've got a solid base that I've not seen us have for a long time. I look at other championship teams, and it might not be the sexiest of ways to play sometimes, but you think, why do we never go and grind a result out? I think we've got that in us if we need to. And it's at the beginning of the summer, we didn't know, and we would debate, and you'd have your opinion, I'd have mine, other fans would have theirs. if we had to go and pick 2 positions, where should we go and prioritise to replace? Is it the keeper? Is it a striker? Is it midfield? Is it defence? All these, nobody could really make their mind up what was the order of priority. Right now, the recruitment's been that good and the way we're playing's been that good that actually it's quite clear where we need to improve for me. We need some pace in that final third and we probably need a number 9. That said, I thought, again, Ohashi played the role and played as part of that forward unit exceptionally well that weekend.
We're definitely leading into this bit where we said that we're now going to jump around a little bit with some of the content that we've put out this week, some of the questions, because obviously when we win and when we're playing well, me and you, we're loving the tweeting out. We're both tweeting out. I think people are not sure when you tweet out and when I tweet out, and I love the fact that, I like the fact they're trying to predict who's who at times, but this is where we're going to jump around a little bit. And I will get to your 3-word reaction in a second, but I want to talk about Gay when he came on. Now, for me, I straight away thought he wasn't getting to the pace of the game. He came on, it was like he didn't know what he'd been told to do, and you could tell Eustace had that moment where he shouted at him, turned around, shook his head, and he looked. And if the manager's doing that on the sideline, that is not a good sign, by the way, especially a John Eustace kind of guy that is a people guy. So I felt like that was a very telling moment for the future of Gay. The immediate future, sorry. Now, I tweeted some questions out, one of which was, what did people think of Gay's performance when he came on? Aaron's put, he did a job. He was essentially brought on to shore us up from up top. Holly's put, he won 2 headers. That's a win for me. Only the one and only Jews. Gay does okay, and he can occupy defenders, but needs to score very soon. Proud Rovers put bloody lazy. Now, I think that was the thing that I came to. It definitely felt like there was times where we wanted him to come on and play a role that Hashi's done, Schmodix has done, Dolan's done. And the way that we've played this season and last season is we want our number 9 to be a ball of energy and get into the areas and just really harass people. Gay's not fitting that. Now, he didn't really win many headers. He didn't seem to really know where to be on the pitch. There was a couple of times I felt for him because the ball wasn't really played where you could tell he wanted it played, and he turned and people had a go at him and he actually had a go back, and I've not seen that with him. Now, do we feel like it's just a guy that's just not going to fit the tactical system, or is it something else?
You've hit quite a few points that I would have made there. He, the way I sit in the family stand when I go over with my daughter, and the way John Eustace referred to him, I don't think was very family friendly, and we all heard him. It was amusing, but not amusing. You're right. There was a couple of times where people had a pop at him. The one that stood out to me was Callum Britton. Played a ball to him and had a right pop at him. And actually, it wasn't Gay's fault. The position, for me, the position Gay was in was okay.
Was that the one where he needed to swing it around the back?
Yeah, and he sort of played it short to the penalty spot. And it was, to me, he just made the wrong choice, Britton, there. And it was the easy option to have a pop at Gay. I felt a bit sorry for him there. However, there was one where Gay didn't close somebody down when Eustace went bonkers, and it was just bloody lazy. And instead he was too busy turning around whinging. But you're right, I didn't think he grasped where the game was at. He was way off the pace. The game was at 100 mile an hour, so that's difficult, but he wasn't. I think my worry with him is he's got a lack of confidence, yes, but I think he's got a lack of understanding of the game and the way the game should be played. Now, that could just be a language barrier. I don't know. I would suggest not, though, because it's not like they just tell you these things. They run through the roles in training and they drill them and drill them. And we know that because, well, we know that. I was still that at the Q&A. I've been fortunate enough to see bits of that at the training ground, but also Eustace talks about that. But then you see that on the pitch. There's no way those players could do what they do if they weren't drilled within an inch of their life. pardon the phrase. But they all know that we rely so heavily on that structure because we don't have the individual quality of some of the other teams that are above us in the league or should be above us. But people know their roles. And there was a point where Britain had gone forward, Hyam had to come across the other way, and Travis looked and thought, well, I need to be here, but Callum Britton should be there. And knew what Britain should be doing. And back he went. Tronstad looked across and thought, oh, crap, Travis should be there. Moved across. So our system and our way of playing relies on everyone knowing their roles, but probably knowing the roles of each other and be willing to step in and able to step in. I don't think Gay's got that understanding. And he comes on and he looks a fish out of water because he's not that switched on at weekend, but also he just doesn't know his role and the roles of everyone else and have that understanding to go, oh, this is where I need to be. And he doesn't drop back into the right-hand side sometimes when he should. I don't think it's just a lazy thing. I think he just doesn't have the understanding. And if you don't have that, you're not going to fit into Eustace's team because you've got to work your absolute cojones off because we are more than what we are individually because of that. And we can't have one player who's not doing it.
No, and when he came and he had those performances where he was putting himself about and he did seem to be a ball of energy and he was, I actually think the Burnley game was his turning point, the sending off there. I think up until that point, they looked like there was something there with him. He looked like he was the kind of guy that was just going to, like I say, harass people, get himself into positions, put his body on the line and just really piss off defenders, which is what you want out of a big number 9. And he's really slowed down and I think it is that red card because since then I haven't seen anything from him that's made me excited about him. I mean, he's got a big smile on his face. Going back to the video that him and Cantwell were on, that was a bit terrifying to watch that. And the fact that he could barely score against a YouTuber is quite scary. But I'm not giving up on him. I think there could be a time which we can use him and he might be a good player for us to have. Another poll I put out, which was just a little bit of a fun one, which I said, so I said, okay, let's say Sam Gallagher was still a Rover and everyone was 100% fit. Who would you have in that number 9 position? It was Gay, Ohashi, Leonard and Sam Gallagher. Now, Ohashi wins hands down at 71%. Someone did vote for Gay. Was it you?
Confession time. I voted for Sam Gallagher because I knew you put the post out.
So I voted for Leonard. I still would love to see Leonard in that number 9. And Ohashi actually pushed back a little bit, but you are changing the formation around a little bit. But I think for a number 9 poacher, I think Leonard's got something about him that could prove to be that poacher that we want. Okay. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up, we gave up on Sam Gallagher. We'd had enough. He wasn't the guy that we wanted. Now, a lot of the things that we said were positive about Sam Gallagher, me included, was about the fact that he got himself into positions. He did get himself about. He did, press when he needed to. Now, that sounds very similar to what we're saying is positive about Ohashi. So why is Ohashi getting 71% and Sam Gallagher only got 14%?
Well, he's fit every week.
Tough one.
That's a start. He is. He's fit every week. I still think Gay wins more in the air. That he won 2 or 3 headers at weekend. I didn't see Sam Gallagher in 2 or 3 headers in a game. Gallagher would have done a job on the wing at weekend. That would have been about it. I just think there's something to work with though with Ohashi. I think he's more involved in the actual game. Gallagher was so unselfish and he would fit a tactical role for a team, but he couldn't do what Ohashi's doing. Ohashi won more headers at weekend than Gallagher would have done. He had the ball to his chest. He played it off. He's quite intelligent, Ohashi, at times, in the way he makes his runs and the way he allows Cantwell to try and go in behind, or Dolan. I think we'll see more of Ohashi once we get some pace out wide. I think if you have somebody, a bit like everyone's having the criticism of Harry Kane, once you have somebody that can run in behind and the pace doesn't become an issue, I do think we'll see a bit more. Gallagher, I think the problem with Sam Gallagher is we all felt he was playing within himself, and I don't mean effort-wise, within his potential, whereas Ohashi is what he is at the moment. We don't really know his potential. He's kind of a bit of a bonus, whereas Gallagher always felt like he should be winning that in the air. He should be doing this. He should be doing this, and he should be doing this. Whereas in reality, if he did all of those things, he'd be playing, well, he'd be better than Chris Wood, wouldn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And we've said this before. If you're ticking every single box, you're not playing for Blackburn Rovers. We haven't got the money to do that. So there has to be an element of picking bits out of what you want out of a striker and putting them into one player and then putting them together. I did feel a little bit sorry for Gay. I was frustrated. This was probably the first game where I came away from it and I was actually, I mentioned it on the audio, didn't I? Well, I came away and I was relatively negative about him. And the moment was when Eustace turned around and had a go. And then when Gay bit at Britain, because I was like, there's something not right there. And when you look at everyone else, where everyone else is really getting on and supportive of each other, and then you see that, you're like, okay, there's something not right. But
I don't know if this was shown on camera. Once the ball had gone out of play, if somebody had gone down for something, Gay, Eustace shouted, Mukhtar, over he came. They had a chat about it and they shook hands, had a hug, and Eustace was just laughing. Eustace is just like, when you've got a niece or a nephew and you just like, they're a cheeky little sod, but you love them. That's what he's like. He's like, oh, Mukhtar again. And he just chuckles. He did it at the Q&A. Someone asked him about him and he went, oh, Mukhtar. It's just...
Because he's an absolute space cadet, is Mukhtar, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. Of course he is. And everyone loves him and he probably smiles and he probably hits one 40 miles over the bar and still laughs. But there's no malice in it. I just think, I personally think he doesn't understand his role in the team. So if you're going to fit him into a team, you've almost got to, not say build a team around him like he's Lionel Messi, but you've got to accommodate what he doesn't do. Whereas Ohashi's fitting into the team, and Gay's not giving us enough to do that at the moment, is he? He's not doing enough that we can go, well, we'll knock on the head what we need from him, and we'll just take what we get. I feel like you're right. I feel like Leonard would be bringing far more to the team, though. I do. I think he's a fair way off yet, Leonard, in terms of fitness. I don't think he thinks he is, but I believe the club do think he's quite a way off, and they're very worried about relapses and things like that. So that's why he's not featuring at the minute.
No, exactly. Well, before we leave the Leeds game, was there any other players you want to bring up? Because obviously we've talked about Tronstad and Dolan and Cantwell. Do you think it, again, similar to the Boro game, just a sum of all parts?
Sum of all parts, but I do think we're getting close to having a real conversation about, is Ainsley Pears' ceiling different than what we thought? I think we're almost there.
Hold fire on that conversation. We've got
Not
something
yet,
to talk about in just a second.
Nearly.
Okay, so any 3-word reactions?
Hundreds, as you can imagine. Red Rose triumph from Ainsley. Kieran Kiffin, more faith, Mark. Sorry, Kieran. Rovers' latest, Dolan was great team effort, early Christmas present from Driving Daisy. Always like their comments. Top class result. We're on our way. Gary Smith knows. He knows we are on our way. Ollie Collins, the famous Jolly Ollie. Leeds are falling apart. But what I am going to bring up here, well, there's two. Brad Stew, absolutely bloody brilliant, of course. But Wild Rover, Lewis, and I'm just going to make a thing here. So Lewis is, he sits near me actually in the Blackburn End. I don't know if he knows he does, but he does. And he's doing a bike ride from Ewood Park to every away game. He rides there. Obviously not in one day. He stays over. And you can follow his journey on TikTok. He's doing it for Smiley Josh Riley Foundation. He's raised £5,865 so far. But literally from Ewood, he's going to every away game. So there was a week, wasn't there, where we played, was it Coventry and then Plymouth that week? He doesn't ride back to Ewood, but he starts again from Ewood to go to the next game.
Jeez,
so an unbelievable effort. He puts clips on of some of the some of the routes and some of the weather he's putting up with. He's getting some decent support. So he went to Boro and they announced something in the fan zone. I believe Rovers feel that they don't like to support one charity over another, other than the Community Trust, their main partner. I do think potentially, we could be talking about him at the fan zone, talking about him a bit more. The work he's doing is unbelievable. So, if you think he's on TikTok, definitely, but I think he's on Instagram and things. I'll find him for you now. He's Wild Rover on TikTok, and he's got a Just Giving page, which he's Just Giving, and it's /Wild Rover. Please do go and support him, because I couldn't bike ride to the end of my street, let alone to those. That is unbelievable.
No, fair play. And anyone that does anything for charity is okay in my book. And that is definitely a hell of a thing to take on. So fair play to him for doing that. Make sure you do go to those links and support him. So, Mark, I haven't asked you about these two performances, about whether you're happy with the result and the performances, because they're obviously a yes. But talking of performances,
yes,
let's talk about Pears just for a moment. Now, one of the polls I put out, again, because I do love a poll, is let's have some more fun. Which goalkeeper would you roll with next game if you had the chance? So I've put Pears, Kaminski, Volstead, and Richie Smallwood. So Richie Smallwood gets a mighty 11.9% because, as Craig Latham says, he is the king of E-Wood. Volstead did actually get a vote.
A vote. Nice.
A vote.
Just on Richie Smallwood, Mike, I'm sorry to cut you while you're mid-floor. I don't know how I felt about this, though. The Blackburn End were singing the King of E-Wood song on Saturday for Sonny Tronstad. Now, it's very apt. I don't know how I feel, though. I was a bit conflicted. I couldn't join in. I couldn't bring myself to... He never gives the ball away. I love him. But you can't have two kings. Is it a case of the king is dead?
No, we have short... I think so. We have short memories as football fans. We can, and I'm pretty sure that if Richie Smallwood was watching us now, I think he would appreciate the game that Tronstad plays. But I'm not sure Tronstad could play in goal as well as Richie Smallwood. So
of course,
he has got that. But what was interesting then is number one choice out of Kaminski and Pears is Pears. It was a 6% difference. 46.6 said Pears, 40.7 said Kaminski. And some of the comments were like Bailey, people have very short memories. Pre-injury Kaminski was insane. And 2 months ago, everyone wanted Pears out of the club. And Mark's Mobile said, I'll have some fun, which will annoy some fans of his, but current Pears is better than the best version of Kaminski we had, just being honest. Now, that is a bold, bold statement to say that Pears is better than the best version of Kaminski we had. I can't accept that one, I'm afraid. For me, Kaminski was extremely solid. He wasn't fantastic with his feet, but then again, neither was Pears. And I think Kaminski would have easily put himself into the next level of being able to play with his feet. Now, Pears deserves a hell of a lot of credit, and we're not going to get into this again. But would you say that Pears over Kaminski if you had the choice between the two and both 100% fit, 100% ready to go?
I feel like I'm about to get into Morton Gamps Pedersen territory. I thought Kaminski was a bit overrated. I thought he came at a very good time for him. He came on the back of Walton and some god-awful keepers.
It's difficult.
I think Ainsley Pears has done exceptionally well. I think he's done exceptionally well considering everything that he did. I still have that worry because of history tells me. Saturday's gone a long way for me because the last time I talked about it on the last pod, the last time there was 7,000 fans breathing down his neck, he had an absolute shocker and crumbled. I will still stick to, I know he misplaced the ball, but then he redeemed himself instantly. When he fumbles one, I want to see how he reacts within that game. because I've not seen that yet, which is a good thing because he's not completely messed one up. But every time I've seen him make an absolute howler and we've conceded from it, I've seen him go worse and worse and worse in that game. So I've yet to see him do that within a game. Hopefully we don't see it for obvious reasons. But no, I can't accept that he's better than Kaminski. I would take Kaminski all day. Even when Kaminski was playing poorly, I didn't want him on the bench when he was and Pears playing. I didn't get it at all. I thought all we were doing was trying to get Pears in the shot window, if I was being honest. And I know that was a different Ainsley Pears, but I'd still have Kaminski in every day of the week.
Pears is proving us wrong, but I'm completely the same. Right now, it is Kaminski, but it's definitely a conversation to have later on. I just feel sorry for Toth because he's come in and everyone's forgotten about him because Pears has absolutely upped his game. But that again, that's something to talk about.
Hopefully he gets over his ankle injury, and then we played Boro in the cup on 15th of Jan. That's got to be the game for Toth, hasn't it? Has to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get a much lesser club, and we could have had a hell of a lot more rotation. But it depends what the club focuses on, and we'll talk about the FA Cup game before the FA Cup game, but it's going to be interesting to see because we've always kind of liked a cup run, and I think you just hope for a much lesser club to like we had the Harrogates and teams like that in the cups. Previously, it would have been nice to have a lesser club, with all due respect, but we'll take it.
It's easy working it at Boro away. We know that.
It certainly is.
They've not beaten us. They've not beaten us for 12 years or something, have they? So, yeah, easy work.
But one thing is for certain, we are facing Hull. Well, obviously. It's not necessarily for certain. The game could get called off because of a waterlogged pitch. Who knows? But we have definitely got another game that Travis will miss due to suspension. Now, on the mailbag, John Lee has put, was Travis yellow deliberate? Now he misses the Hull game, which in theory should be an easier game. Do you think it was something deliberate? I mean, I can't see him doing anything deliberate like that.
If it was deliberate, he wouldn't have done it in the 55th minute, would he?
No, but obviously we haven't got him. So who do you think should step in now? A lot of people have been talking about JRC, Lewis Baker, Buckley. One and only Juice says he's torn between Baker and Buckley. Would hesitate a little with Baker as he's alone though. But it seems to me that the fans are more between Buckley and Baker than JRC. Who's your vote?
I'd go Buckley. I don't think Baker will play there. If you look at where Eustace has played Baker, he's played him wide left of the attacking three. He's not played him as a holding midfielder, and he's played him in the number 10 role. He's not yet played him. Or, sorry, the only other position is when we've gone to a 3 midfield, but he's never played him as the holding midfielder. So I don't think he sees him in that role. That's where I thought he might get a game, but he's not doing. So the only person that we've got in the squad currently that's played in that role really is JRC or Buckley. And after JRC's performance in the cup that time, it's going to be John Buckley, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. The interesting thing, I'm just trying to find the stats now. I can't see it. My screen went a bit funny then. Technical issues, that's what we have on this podcast at all times. But I believe that whenever we've subbed off a centre mid, it is Buckley that's come on, isn't it? Or in the most part, it has been.
He's certainly always come on.
Feels right.
Yeah, I think the only other time we've done that is we changed both of them on a couple of occasions, and then JRC's come on. But yeah, you're right. Buckley's come in every single time.
Yeah, so that says to me it is going to be Buckley that does come into that centre mid role. Do you think we'll change the way we play because of that, or do you think it'll be very much the same guys?
Very much the same. I think the only thing is he's not as natural a replacement for Travis Buckley, is he? He's more, if you were going to compare him to either of them, he's more of a Tronstad. So that'll be interesting how that plays out. But yeah, I can't see anyone else getting that role.
What do you think about the rest of the team for Hull? Do you think there's going to be much rotation? I mean, we haven't seen much rotation, obviously, because of the international break and then missing the first game back. Do you think now's the time to see it?
They've got a week off, haven't they? So, yeah, probably not. We have, just double checking, I'm not talking out my rear. We've got the Sheffield Wednesday game, haven't we? Yeah, on the Tuesday. So he's probably going to have to take both games together and have a think. Travis will be back, so obviously he'd come back in for that. I think you might see Hedges come back in at Hull rather than Beck. It wouldn't surprise me if Baker plays at Hull, but I think it would be out wide on the left. It wouldn't surprise me at all.
No, and we've got quite a few players now that are probably looking at their careers at Rovers and thinking, I want an opportunity to come on. I still don't know what's going on with Sigurdsson. Is there something more there with his illness, stroke injuries? It's just the fact that he's not trusted. But if you're going away, it makes things a little bit of a different dynamic. But Hull are third from bottom. It should be a team that we look at and we think, what, we if we're going to rotate, now's the time to rotate, especially because we haven't got any League Cup to rotate our guys in and out of to see what they've got on offer. So I would like to see something, maybe Gay gets a start, but again, after Eustace having a go at him, I'm not sure he's going to give him that opportunity.
No.
And
one change wouldn't surprise me. Eustace does keep pretty much the same team, doesn't he?
Well, Cantwell came off with a bit of an injury, so there's potential that, it did seem a little bit time wasty. But he's not someone that's necessarily been the fittest.
No.
So he might be someone that drops off, which could mean that Dolan moves into that position, which we've seen him now. Talking of Dolan, there was a question about him saying about Dolan being played out wide. So Ben's put a message the other week about Dolan being played out wide and Cantwell in the number 10. Dolan has that dog working him out wide, and we've seen it recently. Cantwell in the number 10, but almost a free roll, drifting wide to the like of the fullbacks and always have the option. So the question basically is, would you put Dolan in that as that backup for the number 10 when Cantwell's not there, or?
I don't think he's good enough in that role. I think he does a job for the team, but I think it's no coincidence that Cantwell's played there in 3 games now, and we've won all 3 games. Everything's going through him, isn't it? But Dolan's performance at weekend was great out wide. What I've yet to see from Tyrese Dolan is 3, 4, 5 performances like that in a row in the same position.
That's it. That's exactly it. Now, Ross Gibson has asked, he looked better on the right wing against Leeds. Do you think that's his best position? I just think it worked out really well for him there. And I would quite happily give him a run of games in the same position to see what he's got, because the contract situation is up in the air still. We don't know where he's at. There's loads of questions about, like Tim DYO has said, what do we do with Dolan? Is it time to give him? Is it time to give one more take it or leave it offer with the deadline on the 31st? I think if we're going to see what he's got, I'd play him all December. I would give him every single game between now and the 31st in one position. If it's the right wing, it's the right wing, and just say, right, let's see what you've got. This is your opportunity. You prove that you're going to get what you want out of us, and give us a headache.
In answer to the first question, is it his best position? I see him play on the left-hand side, play really well against Leicester that time in the Cup, and I think, that's his best position. And then he has a couple of games where he's absolutely anonymous there. I see him play as a number 9. I think he's awful. Then he plays well there in the Cup, and you think, actually, maybe that's his best position. Same with the 10 role, and now he's done it again on the right-hand side. So I will tell you his best position when he plays 4 or 5 games in a row at that standard in the same position. I would hazard a guess we will sit here this time next week, and Tyrese Dolan will not have played as well on Saturday, or certainly, let's say in 2 weeks' time, when he's had 3 potential games more on the right-hand side of midfield, I bet he's not had a game like he had on Saturday out of any of them.
Yeah, and that's been the problem really over his recent career, is that consistency. I'm trying to look at this whole game sensibly. When you come off the back of 2 results, well, 3 results, including the Cardiff one, where it did feel like we'd put in the performances as individuals as well as a team, that it's really difficult to look at this one and think that it's going to be anything other than a successful trip for us. But we need to be sensible, and that's the trouble. You know, we need to come off cloud 9, which is quite funny that we're on cloud 9 and we're not even top of the league or anything. We're just pushing playoffs. I mean, you could say we're in the playoffs if we'd won that game against Portsmouth, which we were obviously always going to win. But coming off cloud 9 a little bit and being a little bit more sensible, it can't go on forever. And there's going to be a time where we need to grind it out and hopefully get a result against a team that might give us a problem. Do you think Hull are the kind of team that may give us a problem? I mean, it's tough when you go against these teams that are fighting. It's away, and they could have a bit of dog in them.
I'm a little bit more where I think Hull are akin to Coventry a bit more. I think they're in a false position. However, they've lost a hell of a lot more players than Coventry. I said last year, Hull were going boom or bust, and now they've had to, let quality players like Tyler Morton go back. But they are in a little bit of a false position. They will turn it around a bit, I would suspect. They've just got rid of the manager, which, great timing for us. Yeah. I think that this is, I would say we're more suited to teams like Boro and Leeds at the moment, because we've not got the threat in the final third. But then you look at the Cardiff game. So I think this is probably more of a Cardiff game. Obviously, Vyman's still out. So, yeah, we need to find a replacement for Vyman's goal threat, really, don't we? If we're going to have a game like Cardiff.
Exactly. I think we're going to see a little bit of rotation. I've said that every single time, and then we've seen absolutely no rotation. But I'm going to be right at some point. I think there's an element of we need to have stability. You don't want to have too much, because we haven't exactly got strength in depth. So whilst it is a sum of all parts, like we've discussed, we haven't got the strength to be able to go and pick a load of changes in them to come in, because a lot of them haven't actually had extended game time themselves. So I don't want to see too much rotation, but I do think there's going to be a little bit. I don't like doing predictions. Do you want to predict anything?
Yeah, 2-1 Rovers.
I love it.
I did predict 1-0 Rovers at weekend. Lottie put obviously she's not 18, so she didn't put a bet on. She predicted that Owen Beck would score and we'd win 1-0. I predicted Tyrese Dolan would score and we'd win 1-0. So I was a little bit upset when he didn't take the penalty. But I do think, I do wonder, whether Dolan's insistence to take that penalty had something to do with him wanting to have. We've questioned his goal involvements, haven't we? And numbers. I do wonder whether there's that desire to get them up, which I hope there is, because that is what he's been missing. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope he goes into Saturday, has another performance like that, and we're raving about him. He's gone and got a couple of goals. We all want that.
Oh, we want him to succeed. We want him to succeed because everyone wins, and I'd love it to be a nice contract, and because it's a nice thing for him, because he has given a lot to the club. I mean, we've obviously we give him a contract and it's a job, but he's always handled himself really well. So I hope he's a success. I mean, you said he's a great guy, and we've interviewed him on the old channel, and everything he was saying was the right things when we did that. And I do hope it's success. But for me, I'd play him every single game now till December, see what he does on that right wing. And if it works for the club and he's got a number in mind and we feel like he's worth it, great. But you're only going to know if he's worth it if you give him a prolonged period no matter what. And this, to me, now is that period. We're in a good position in the league. I'd like to think that we're not going to have any kind of major drop-off like we've had in the past, because I like to think that Eustace has a little bit more about him than previous managers to stop that from happening. So, yeah, I'd love to see Dolan. But on that, about Eustace, it does bring up question of the week that was put out. Whose football do you enjoy more, John Dole Thomason or John Eustace? So there's a few here. Before we get into those, do you have an opinion yourself?
It's obviously a perfect time to ask the question, isn't it? I'm going to have to put for Eustace. I am. Because it's not all about... If it was part of the bus, Joe Rodon, and you showed no ambition, then no, I don't want to watch that. I was one of the supporters who, when Allardyce left, I was quite happy. I didn't actually think the mistake that we made was getting rid of Allardyce. I thought it was the replacement or lack of. I loved Mark Hughes' football, where there's loads of grit. We could go to places and dig a result out, but we had quality. And I see Eustace is almost akin to that as we're moving forward. I think he's evolving into that. So that's absolutely fine by me. Do I want us to go and dig some results out at Leeds away and wherever? Yeah, of course I do. I don't mind that. You don't mind a backs against the wall performance where everyone's, you're the underdog and you're all scrapping for the shirt. I don't mind that. What I didn't like was the way Allardyce set his teams up, and it was a very negative way. I think Eustace plays to a plan. He's got a plan to attack and he's got a plan with the defence. I also think it will be a different conversation if we add to our attacking threat and we're then not using it more. What would Eustace do if he had a front line that involved somebody with Brereton Diaz's pace? If he had Kadri when Mowbray did? If we had Prime Bradley Dack? These kind of things. I think it'd be a different story. I really do. I think the time to judge that is probably at the end of the season. So we've had 18 months. We've had where he's really... I forget last season because it was just about staying in the league, wasn't it? And he's not carried that way of playing on. But once we've added in January, we've added some pace, we've added a number 9. Let's see how he plays then. But I don't mind the style of football at the minute. I've not gone to one game and thought, this is pretty dull. I have watched us play against Coventry and think it was pretty dull. But he rightfully points back to that game and says, we let ourselves down. We didn't do the things that we do. So that's all right. If he was coming out after that game and going, I was really pleased with the performance and I was seeing something different, I'd have an issue. But he wasn't. So, yeah, I think he's the more reliable of the two, undoubtedly. And I'm enjoying the fact that I turn up and I know what I'm going to get, and that's maximum effort. And I think for me, right now, he's looking like he sums up our motto of Arte Labore. And that's the Rovers I love.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the one and only Jew said. Eustace, no doubt about it. Rather see Arte Labore football than the pretty passing that gets us nowhere. California Rover probably is worded it how I would have done. Is Eustace is less stressful, but JDT had us playing some great football, but it wasn't sustainable. Now, I openly admit that I was a huge JDT fan. I was absolutely in love with the football that we were playing, but it's all relative to that moment. My opinions were formed at that moment because I was going off, the Mowbray era, which I found at times I didn't like the fact that we didn't have plan B. It felt boring at times, but there was really exciting times, and I'll always appreciate what Mowbray did for us. He got us back in the big time. Well, relative big time for us. Obviously, we have bigger goals, but at the time, to take us back up from League One, I thought he was the right man to solidify the club, and everything worked great. But it was boring at times, and JDT comes in and we get this swashbuckling way of football. We've said it time and again. The first 10 minutes of a game, we will go absolutely at them. We're either going to beat you 4-0 or we're going to lose 4-0. And like California Rovers said, it wasn't sustainable, and it definitely wasn't. But at the time, I was very excited about it. I remember us talking about the Blues game where we won 4-2, and we could just tell the team was not right. We won 4-2 because John Ruddy had the worst game of his career, and we got pelters for it, and then we ended up being proved right that it wasn't great. But Eustace, he has these different plans. He's got all these things in front of him, all these blockers in front of him, like the financials, contracts not necessarily being in place. You've got to have these players. We can't go and get the players you necessarily want, and all of this. And he's just taken it with a big smile and just worked with what he's got. Like they say, making chicken salad out of chicken shit, and he has done that. I mean, we love these players, but at the start of the transfer window, we were talking about potentially going back down into League One. After the transfer window, you take Cantwell out of it, and there's some relatively risky signings there, isn't there? We're looking at them and they're like, who's Ohashi? Who's Gay? Who are these players? We go and get Beck in on loan, and he could have just been another guy coming through. Cantwell, okay, a little bit more exciting, but Toth, we had Pears in goal. We didn't know about anything about this Toth. So there were still risky signings, and yet we still go into these games now, and there's hope every single game now. I don't go into a game against Leeds where, I mean, I'm lying a little bit because I did last time where I did think we weren't necessarily going to win, but I know that we're going to make a good. I think what I'm trying to say is we're always going to make a good account of ourselves. In my opinion, you are going to get the odd game like the Coventry one, but generally every single game, I feel like we've made a good account of ourselves, except for that one. I could be missing another one, and I'm going to get people in the comments, but there's just always a plan. I feel like there's always a plan. The subs tend to come at the right time. They tend to be the right ones. When I'm thinking about something, I'm thinking, do you know what? I can get what you're trying to do there. I can see it. There's a disciplined performance. There's a team spirit as well. And now, hearing all the stories about JDT leaving and, the players that weren't happy, I can now understand why we went and how we went. So you've got that side of things. So for me, the people management, it's Eustace all the way. The tactical decisions, it's Eustace all the way. The using of the people that you've got, it's Eustace all the way. And as much as I was a big fan of JDT, I think Eustace has beaten him in all categories.
Couldn't have put it back myself.
It was a long way of me putting it in a way, but I got there in the end.
You're absolutely spot on. And just touching on Mowbray, I felt really sorry for Tony Mowbray towards the end because the fans did turn a little bit. And I think there's an element of you get bored, don't you? You know, that's modern culture. It's the way. Were we feeling entitled? Probably not. I think we were just a bit bored of what we were watching at times. I remember going midweek games, we felt a bit of a chore. But Tony Mowbray is the steadiest manager you could have. He got us talking about football decisions again at the club. He got us, the debates that we were having were about football. Before that, we barely touched on the football because it was all about the owners and all the other crap going on. So I will always love Tony Mowbray for that. And Tony Mowbray is somebody that you should have at your club. Imagine having him involved in the director's box and guiding your club. A great man and ultimately a great manager for Rovers. He was. We could
100%.
have really disappeared, and I'll be forever grateful for him for that.
100%. And I mean, we talk about these things. Sometimes you've got your heart on your sleeve with it. You talk with your heart. Sometimes you talk with your head. But he will always be someone similar to the DAC, where they made us love Rovers again. They brought us back into. I said big time. That was the wrong way to put it earlier. But they put us back into the conversation of, being something again, and that was great. And to have a club that was so all over the place, I felt like Mowbray did. stabilise us. But of course, when these questions go out, we are going to compare Eustace to the previous guy, and that was JDT. Yeah. And the good thing is we found it weird when Eustace was installed as manager. It was all Lizzie Waggett's mate and all of this. It seems to be successful so far. All the comments on here, and we appreciate people commenting. Sorry, I can't get to them all, but everyone's saying about Eustace being the guy. For me, it's nice to hear a Brummy voice talking Rovers. So I'm not the only one, so that's quite nice. But I do think he's got the support of the fan base. I haven't heard, and it's easy. We've had 2 really good wins, well, 3 if you include the Cardiff ones. So it's easy that we're all up talking, no, Eustace is God and all of this. No, we're not saying that, but he is working with a tight situation and he's doing really well. And I completely agree with you. I would love to see what he's like with a few more weapons attacking wise. You know, some people that are pacey, a bit more clinical. I would love to see that. And interesting, I don't know if anyone's listened to the Harley Dean Under the Cosh episodes, because I've spoken to Harley Dean a couple of times because we coached his son before he actually went to the Blues Academy. And he's actually quite a funny guy. But he was talking about Eustace, and I think he used the term, what a guy. And when you've got people talking like that about your manager, it makes you proud because you want people to be people managers as well. You don't want everyone just to be this, knobhead that's going to rule with an iron fist. You can't do that at our club. You need to have that family environment. That's what we've built the club on, and that's where he's come in. And I just feel like he was it you saying last week, actually, saying about when Eustace comes in, he always says hello to everyone. Harley Dean mentioned it as well, you see, and that's what you want, isn't it? You want that family environment, and you're on the forum. You've talked to him in that evening that you did. He just seems like a proper guy.
I think he almost, he does set a standard at the training grounds. He sets a standard for the way you conduct yourself, and he sets a standard for the way that you conduct yourself on the pitch. But he does it without ruling by an iron fist. What he does is basically say, show some respect for the club, but show some respect for the people around you. And if you're not doing it, you're not disrespecting me, you're disrespecting yourself, but actually disrespecting everyone else. And they're your mates. The lady who's the player liaison, if you're rude to her, you're an arsehole. We all know that. But if you're rude to her, you're rude to the kit man. They're part of your club. He doesn't need to go and start rollicking people, and start fining them. It's just basically, listen, this is the standards. This is the environment I want to come to work in. This is the environment you want to come to work in. They're your mates. You're letting them down. It's not good enough. Bang. See in a bit. And I get the feeling that they're probably police themselves now because there's a standard that
You've got
set.
Trav as well, haven't you? Trav seems to be that kind of guy.
Yeah. And I love that fact. I love the fact that we've got some standards left and that we're a proper unit. And it was so fragmented under Eustace, under Thomason. And I also always felt that Thomason was in it for himself. We know loyalty's not massive in football, but I think, Thomason's only agenda, really, yes, the byproduct is that you'll do well, but the only agenda really was to come and get used as a stepping stone to the Premier League. Not very wrong. I'm not saying Eustace wouldn't walk, but I think actually he's focused on what I do right now. And if I do my job really well, then I'll probably get some attention. Whereas I think Thomason was more eyes on the prize, and I'm going to play this way of football. And if it doesn't get success for Rovers, someone will look at me and say, oh, well, if we gave him better players, he'd do really well. Whereas Eustace is more of, right, what will make Blackburn Rovers the best they can be right now?
Well, that's the thing. You look at his playing career, and he seems like just a really humble guy, and like you say, very family. He wants it to be a family club, and that Harley Dean episode when he was talking about Eustace, it did make me really proud that he's our manager now. I just hope it continues, and hopefully it does continue this week. We're coming to the 90th minute of the pod. We're just about to come into injury time, Mark. I know you had the forum recently. We're not going to get into details today. That's something you're going to go into next week. We also had a question of the week where we said about who do you think the best player to play for Rovers since 2000 was. We're going to keep that one rolling for another week, because we've already had 28 comments on that one and it hasn't been out that long. So, and there's some, I mean, Aaron, you've put Leon best. I'm not happy about that. I might ban you from the pod on that one. But other than that, there's some really good ones on there. But Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure. We talked last week about wanting an unexpected result. We got to. Come on. It's good to be a Rovers fan at the moment, isn't it?
I'm buzzing. I've had a smile on my face all weekend. And I just look at them and I think that's my club. That's the way I want my club to be. Yeah, winning, obviously. But I want my club to be a team that gives their all, has a bit of quality, but worst case scenario, look at them, they gave absolutely everything to a plan. And that's the club I want to support. That's the club I support. And Lancashire is the only county to be in, Mike, I'm afraid.
Exactly. The War of the Roses has been won. Until next time. Until next time, it has been a great week. Let's enjoy it while it lasts. It's been fantastic. I'm loving life. Let's hope it continues. Next week, we've got lots of content to talk about. We've got the forum. We've got a question of the week. Put the things on the mailbags, comments down below. Like, subscribe, share, do all the good stuff so we can keep making this content for you. And hopefully next week we'll be talking about another win for the mighty Rovers. But until then, have a great week and we'll see you next time.